is still fighting, because Morales also is good, but Morales fight, I don't know, last time, I don't remember when he fight, you know. If you ask like who's the most deserved guy, I think Carlos Prater.
Islam, you're here. Congratulations, you did it, the 17th straight win. It was a tough fight to get there, but how good do you feel right now, having accomplished what no one else in the history of our sport has ever done before?
I feel happy, thank you so much. Feel happy, hard fight, it's good fight, good opponent, and now it's no more Anderson Silva, Islam Makhachev record, I like this.
Islam Makhachev versus Ian Machado Gary just took place in the main event of UFC 330, and this is my reaction to that absolute snooze fest in the main event. Other than one moment in round 2 where Islam Makhachev head kicked Ian Gary and caught him with the toes at the end of the head kick and knocked him down, Ian Gary gets right back up, Islam Makhachev scores a head and arm throw takedown. Other than that one moment in that 30-second sequence, Islam Makhachev didn't do any harm whatsoever to Ian Gary.
I felt like tonight was set up for the upset. I felt like the upset could happen tonight with so much on the line, all the records that Islam has, and he's going to break Anderson Silva's record. There's weight classes for a reason. Ian Gary is a big, rangy, strong guy who has great takedown defense. I mean, if you look at his takedown defense tonight against Islam, it was impressive. I think that Ian is a talented guy. If he had even an ounce of killer instinct in that 5th round, you know, he had been beating him to the body. Islam's whole, I think, right side was beat up. His face was beat up. You don't come out and hug and shake hands. And that shit drives me fucking crazy when there's so much at stake. And there's also, you know, a lot of mental, you know, gamesmanship, whatever you want to call it in this game. You come out in that 5th round with a flying knee or something crazy and you try to finish the fight. I think that this is one of those fights that Ian will go back and watch and say, fuck, wish I could do that over again. You know, if he came out and tried to destroy and win that last round, you know, with everything that he had, I think it's a totally different fight. Islam went out, you know, the complete opposite now, against a bigger, strong, rangy guy who has good takedown defense, controlled him, shut him down. I don't know if he was in his head and Ian felt like he had to come out and shake hands in the 5th round or whatever, but, you know, Islam did exactly what he needed to do to win that fight. When I went in after the fight and Ian Gary came over and shook my hand, Ian Gary's handshake is like a fucking vice grip, you know, and he is a big, powerful, rangy guy. And, you know, for Islam to go in and do what he did to him tonight, you know, physical and mental. If you to come out of that fucking corner like a raging fucking bull, you know, we might be having a different conversation right now.
Do you feel like Ian's too nice to his opponents? At the press conference, he wanted to build Islam up. He's been nice about him all week.
I think that Ian's a classy guy is what I think. And, you know, he always shows class. He did, you know, before the fight, he goes over and shakes, you know, all the corners' hands and all that stuff's great. But when that fucking bell rings, you got to switch. You got to switch all that shit off and go. And you definitely got to do it in the 5th round after the, you know, he fought a great fight against Islam, who, you know, everybody in this room and everybody else is saying, well, we might start talking about GOAT. You don't go shake the fucking GOAT's hand going into the 5th round. You come out to fucking annihilate him. I mean, that just has to be your mindset, in my humble opinion.
Really tested in ways that we haven't seen him tested before. I mean, it was a difficult fight. Although he won by, you know, a good margin, a healthy margin, there was moments where you're used to Islam having a certain amount of control and dominance that he just didn't seem to have.
Yep.
Over the bigger guys. And this is the question. As he's moved up to 170, there's some guys like Morales that are absolutely gigantic. And what happens if he fights those guys? The gap is bigger than it is with Ian Gary. Ian, again, out of the 10 victories that he's had inside the octagon, he's only had 3 stoppages.
Yep.
Morales killed.
Before the fight, the narrative was competitive, real competitive. Here's why analysts thought Gary had a path. Max Holloway predicted the early rounds would be brutal for Islam. Gary's reach would initially disrupt Islam's offense. Islam would need time to gauge distance, find safe entries, adjust to that range. The first 2 rounds could genuinely favor Gary, but Holloway also predicted the shift. As Islam gathered intel, found his timing, and closed the distance, he would steadily ration up the pressure, push Gary to the fence, establish dominant positions, open up ground and pound opportunities, and that's exactly what happened, except Islam didn't even need to overwhelm him with pressure. Gary mentally checked out. Kamaru Usman issued a starker warning: Gary can't win this fight just by staying on his feet. Defensive wrestling is critical, but it's nowhere near enough. Islam's distance management and rhythm control are unbeatable if Gary can't disrupt that cadence and drag Islam completely out of his comfort zone. Demetrius Johnson favored Islam but saw a path to decision if Gary stayed disciplined, moved constantly, and prevented prolonged grappling. A technical fight. A potential decision. Israel Adesanya was conflicted. Logically, he bet on Makhachev. Emotionally, he wanted the narrative of Gary proving he belonged. But even Izzy's heart couldn't overcome his analytical brain. Wade Plemons saw a legitimate path. If Gary exploited Islam's occasional striking openings, if he stayed composed, if he maintained distance and used his reach to force an extended striking battle. If every single prediction hinged on Gary doing more, being more aggressive, making Islam uncomfortable, he didn't. Here's what makes this loss catastrophic for Ian Gary, and I mean catastrophic. Round 5. Islam's entire right side was beaten. His face was swollen, his ribs were compromised. He was hurt, not tired, not slowing down, hurt, visibly damaged by Gary's body work and pressure striking. And what did Gary do? He came out and shook his hand, middle of the cage, while championship gold was on the line, while history was being written. Joe Rogan wasn't alone in noticing this. Everyone saw it. Commentators saw it, analysts saw it. Gary had 1 round to change the entire trajectory of this fight. 1 round to separate himself from being just another name Islam beat. 1 round where every single analyst in the sport, Kamaru Usman, Max Holloway, Israel Adesanya, said this was his window, and he didn't step through it. Usman broke down Islam's primary weapon before the fight: distance management. Islam doesn't force, he doesn't rush. He creates what Usman calls a hypnotic cadence, a rhythm where you're locked in front of him, responding to his feints, his movements, his threats. You can't initiate your own offense, you're stuck in his dance. That's exactly what happened to Gary. For 5 rounds, Gary's takedown defense was genuinely impressive, no question. But takedown defense alone isn't the answer against Islam, because Islam isn't a one-dimensional wrestler. He has elite striking. He has elite spacing. He controls range through movement, not volume. By round 5, Gary had figured out how to stuff takedowns. He had the physical tools, the size advantage, the reach advantage. All he needed was the killer instinct to exploit the one moment Islam became vulnerable. He didn't find it. Islam Makhachev just made history, 17 straight victories. He broke Anderson Silva's consecutive title defense record. But here's what nobody's talking about. Ian Gary had Islam beaten senseless for 5 rounds and completely froze when it mattered most. This is what happens when mental weakness costs you legacy. UFC 330 just wrapped in Philadelphia. Islam Makhachev retained his lightweight title and secured his 17th consecutive win. That number ends Anderson Silva's reign at 16. Think about that. 16, that's not just a record, that's a dynasty, and Islam just erased it. He's now the 5th fighter in combat sports history to successfully defend championships across 2 different weight classes. Welterweight, lightweight, different classes entirely. The pressure of that record should have crushed him. The magnitude of fighting someone as big, as strong, and as rangy as Ian Gary should have forced Islam to dig deep. But that's not what happened. Islam controlled this fight with devastating efficiency. One moment defined round 2. A head kick that caught Gary with the toes dropped him, followed by a head and arm throw takedown. Other than that single 30-second sequence, Islam landed nothing significant for 20 minutes. This is where it gets psychological. Rogan wasn't just critiquing technique, he was identifying a mental gap. Gary is a classy guy. He showed respect before the fight. He went over and shook hands in his opponent's corner. That's character, that's sportsmanship. But when that bell rang, something didn't switch. By round 5, when he had Islam hurt, when he had the opportunity to separate himself from every other fighter Islam had beaten, Gary's competitive fire didn't reignite. Rogan said it clearly: if Gary came out in that 5th round with a flying knee, with something absolutely wild, with everything he had, I guarantee this is one of those fights Ian will replay in his head forever, just thinking, damn it. That's not technique failing, that's mentality failing. Islam's team knew what was at stake, a historic record. Islam came in peak condition. Islam arrived ready. Islam executed. Gary's team had the blueprint. The size, the reach, the defensive wrestling. Everything said it was possible. But possible and executing are different worlds. Islam Makhachev broke Anderson Silva's record not because he was so dominant, but because Ian Gary couldn't find his killer instinct when it mattered most. That's the real headline.